Good morning, Lacrosse community. I'm Ryan Berns. I'm the president of Lacrosse Leadership Institute. It's our mission to empower all those that love lacrosse, to utilize the skills that you get in the sport, to ultimately live the life that you want to live. I am so excited for our conversation today. Ryan Wellner is just a wealth of knowledge when it comes down to lacrosse and his coaching experience, but currently he's one of the coaches on the Notre Dame lacrosse team. Ryan, will you please share with our community a little bit about your lacrosse background, how you got started, and where ultimately your journey is taking you to today?
Yeah, first of all, thanks so much, Ryan, for having me. Very excited to be joining you, and pre-Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving to you, the listeners. It's a crazy time for all of us. So I'm obviously, I think, now more than ever, showing gratitude, and this is a great way for me because the game has given me so much. I grew up on Long Island, and I didn't get into lacrosse, believe it or not, even though Long Island is a lacrosse hotbed, if you will, until, seventh grade. And I played baseball prior to at a pretty high level. And I have an older brother who, I obviously wanted to emulate and follow in his footsteps. And, when in high school as a freshman, he had a rotator cuff tear as a pitcher. And that began, our journey in lacrosse. He kind of started it, and my younger sister finished it. And we all kind of got into lacrosse from that injury, believe it or not, just through osmosis, I guess. Our high school, I went to the same high school as my brother ultimately. And, he kind of convinced him to play lacrosse, and then convinced me to play lacrosse. And then my sister, played as well. And so that started the journey, and it's kind of, really taken off from there. But it was that moment, where, my path kind of became a little bit clearer, and my passion for the game and really developed. I played a multitude of sports. I was a multi-sport athlete growing up, and I played hockey and lacrosse in high school, and a little bit of football, but I had to give it up to play hockey. And then I realized, pretty late in high school that hockey might not be, my avenue in life. And lacrosse became that, really that place for me. And I ebbs and flows of the recruiting process, and I found a home at Mary Washington that I felt was good for me, both as a person, academically, socially, and then from a lacrosse standpoint. I wanted to play. I wanted to play right away. And, I did. I played all 4 years. I was there. I started, I was two-time captain, and then graduated and moved to England. And I worked for the English Lacrosse Association, which was a neat program. They don't really have the same program. They have similar ones now. And I coached, and that got me, really the bug started there. And you could stop me at any time. It's kind of just rambling, but
keep going. This is terrific.
Yeah. In college, I always wanted to be like a Fortune 500 CEO. And, I was really business savvy and kind of just had that entrepreneurial spirit. And when I got to England, I realized I loved being outside. I loved working with kids. It made me realize how much of an impact the coaches in my life had. And whatever sport, I think I remember almost all of them, and a story here or there. And, moved back to the States after a year, and, applied for college jobs. I wasn't fortunate to get one. Actually, I think I was fortunate enough it didn't work out, because I think it, that kind of set me on the journey I was on. And I went to work for the National Lacrosse League, the Pro Indoor League, which at the time was headquartered in New York City. I spent 2.5 years there, and got a little sense of the professional life, and traveling through Canada and the US, and watching the growth at that stage. I also realized I didn't want to sit behind a desk. And believe it or not, the current Delaware head coach, Ben DeLuca, was also at the National Lacrosse League at the same time. And we worked very closely together. He left to go back to Cornell to be an assistant coach. I took his role over at the NLL, and then I realized, wow, I don't want to do this either. And I left to go back to my high school as an assistant coach, and then that's next summer. 3 months later, I got hired at the United States Merchant Marine Academy, and that began my college coaching journey. What was 19 years ago. So,
wow,
yeah,
it's incredible to see how your journey starts with an unfortunate event for your brother. but it turns into a family affair. I'm sure you all are pushing each other one after the other to continue to be better and better. You find a great fit in college that not only is lacrosse oriented, but personally and academically oriented. And I think that's a big reason why this Lacrosse Leadership Institute came around, is you gain skills because of lacrosse. You don't realize that you're going in to gain those skills, but then it turns into your life. And these last 19 years in the college realm, I can imagine have been insanely impactful. Do you have any pinnacle lacrosse moments, or is there a one pinnacle moment or a couple that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I mean, first to go back to what your last comment, I do think that, you know, if you really frame the process out when it begins as in your youth days and then your high school, you know, lacrosse is a way to open up doors and to get to a place that ultimately you want to get to. And sometimes it isn't youth. To go to a high school you might not be able to go to, or in high school to go to a college that, you know, just with one piece, which is the academic piece, having the lacrosse part of it, it might get you somewhere that you didn't think you would end up. So I do think that everything is kind of packaged together. Do I have a pinnacle moment in my career? Oh my God, I think I have a bunch. You know, again, every one of the head coaches I worked for at the institutions I worked for, those were pinnacle moments. I think that in 2010, I was at Stony Brook University in my second year on that staff, and you know, we went on a run, and we were happened to be hosting the quarterfinals, the NCAA Division I quarterfinals that year, and we ended up, you know, making the tournament. We hosted Denver at home, and in the first round, and we beat them, and then we hosted Virginia, who was the #1 team in the country, at home before, you know, 13,000 fans on Long Island, standing room only. That was a pinnacle moment. I remember, you know, after we beat Denver, my dad was like tearing up, and you know, we're a Long Island family, so it's kind of surreal. But yeah, I won't forget that. I remember us busing from the hotel to the stadium, and we had a police escort, and our bus driver, who was somebody that we had at every trip, we went through the parking lot, and it was jam packed, and there was like Stony Brook fans everywhere, and of course, because we're at home, and you know, he's like, oh, we're gonna drive through the fans, and we wanted to, you know, we could feel the tension as a coaching staff on the bus. So we wanted to break up the tension, and we thought that would be a good way to show our guys. And so we had the second game. There was a game going on, you know, before us, and we drove through the parking lot, which was unreal. And the bus driver turns around and he goes, "Let's do it again." So we drove through the parking lot again before we got to our locker room. But and then we played it, you know, a 1-goal game and went into overtime and unfortunately lost. But you know, that was a pinnacle moment. I mean, I think there's so many that, you know, when my career started, Tom Gill, who is a legend in our game, he coaches at the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy. He had a really uncanny way of motivating our players, some of which probably I wouldn't use in this day and age, but at the time made a lot of sense. And as a young coach, you know, he really kind of pushed me out of bed, I guess. I remember showing up at practice without a whistle or a piece of paper and a pencil, and he just looks over and he goes, "You would never show up for school without your books and your pencil and your paper, would you? So don't show up at practice." And that, you know, I haven't forgot that moment. It was like a night practice. I think it was like 8 o'clock at night. Anyways, yeah, pinnacle moments, there's many, but that one in particular at Stony Brook, and you know, I can go through it every stop. I've had a pinnacle moment, and my career has definitely not been you know, a normal one. I think I've kind of moved and shook, and I've kind of touched every surface of, you know, different institutions, academically, public school, private school, a service academy, 2 of those, and you know, D3 and D1. So, you know, it's been an interesting journey, and one I'm proud of, and certainly not one that I ever thought I would be on, but I'm glad I am.
Well, I can just picture you guys on the bus, just a crowded parking lot, and driving through, and like you said, just the tension, the fans there. I totally could get how that's a pinnacle moment, and I just hope that everyone gets a chance to have that type of experience, or at least anyone who's young that's looking for an experience like that. Sounds like it's absolutely magical. I know I had similar experiences, and those are the things that really last with you. And thanks for sharing that. One other thing you mentioned was the coach at the Merchant Marine. I think you said it's Tom Gill. And you said he
Yes.
uses different motivational strategies. And I think that leads to the next question. And it may not be what Tom had to say, but what does leadership mean to you, Ryan?
I mean, leadership is serving others. That's what leadership means to me. And you know, having spent 9 years at, you know, one of our nation's leadership laboratories, if you will, and at the Naval Academy, you know, I had a chance to interact with military leaders, civilians, you know, creme de la creme, obviously the individuals that go to school there. So I was able to really get a sense of different kind of leadership. What works, what doesn't, what works for me personally, what doesn't work for me personally. But when it comes down to it, and what boils down to is being a leader is to serve others. I think it's really cliche in this day and age, that the word leadership. I think there's a lot of there's a lot of avenues to explore, but I really think it's something different for everybody. And I also believe that, you know, leadership isn't just one form. It's not one belief. It's what your belief is, and that's what leadership means to me.
Mm. I think that's so important, is when you're leading, there's so many different ways to do that, but the servant leadership strategy, if you will, something that continues to come up because it's about empowering those that are trusting you to lead and to accomplish a collective goal. And it sounds like that's what you've seen with your experience. Can you share an example of how you've been a servant leader, or how you've seen this firsthand?
Yeah, I guess, you know, I've become, as I've evolved as a human being and as a coach, I've gone from one side to the other. I thought that, you know, coaching was all about discipline and leadership and sternness. And as I've matured as a coach and developed and found my own, you know, sense and philosophy, I think I've really found that, for me personally, you know, having collective ownership and inclusiveness in what I'm doing, and whether that's with the young men here at Notre Dame, or the young men at Stony Brook, or the young men at the Naval Academy, or Washington and Lee, or Stevens Tech, or the Merchant Marine Academy, and wherever my career moves me from there, is making them feel a part of the process, and including them in the process, and that's how I can serve them better. If I know what they're thinking or how they're thinking about things, then they're going to be more willing to share with me in a moment of adversity, as opposed to, you know, dismiss what either I'm saying or think that I'm going to dismiss what they're saying. So that's how I've been more inclusive. It's a major part of me, you know, whether it's my personal life or with my own children or with my colleagues, you know, being more inclusive, make everybody a part of the collaborative process. And obviously the final decision rests with me or whomever that decision maker is, but knowing that I was a piece of it. And I want, you know, the young men to know that they're a piece of all the decisions we make. That doesn't mean we always have to go along with them, but at least with listening to them.
Yeah, I think that's a big part, is that collaboration. You spoke about it, especially with young people, men, women. They're at such an integral part of their life. I think every moment is where we should always focus on the present. But
Yep.
for you to be in charge of young men who are at the arguably the prime of their life, how do you start training them or leading them down the path of becoming leaders themselves? I know you said inclusion is such a big thing, so that they can have vulnerable conversation during adversity. Is that how you empower leaders, or how do you go about that? And how can the younger viewers that we have start to think about how they can become better leaders?
Yeah, I think the first part is that, you know, they need to see my actions. They need to know that I'm doing that. I need to be vulnerable and face adversity in front of them, and not be afraid to make a mistake or admit when I'm wrong. I think that that's where it starts. You know, you get the buy-in and the trust, but if there's not a mutual feeling of protection, or, you know, it's a one-sided conversation, then you're never going to get buy-in. So for me, is that I gotta promote what I'm permitting, and you know, I want to make sure that they see that. So I try to do as much off the field, believe it or not, and share personal experiences, whether it's a personal, you know, experience in our life, or a passage from a book or an article. where we could talk about things that happen in life. That's where leadership's developed. It's not necessarily on the lacrosse field. I do happen to believe that leaders are developed, but I also think leaders are born. I see both arguments. I see both sides of it. I think that there's natural born leaders, and I think there's leaders that take time that just need a little inkling. But I do think leadership exists in all of us. And sometimes you got to be able to pull it out of somebody, and that's my job, and that's our job as coaches and teachers. So I know that that's always a popular conversation. It's something that, a lot of debate goes on about is, are you born with leadership or is it something that's taught? I think it's both personally. And not that I'm an expert in life, I believe, and I think we all are. So that's how I try to do a lot of things off the field. I want to make sure that they know where I'm coming from and the why. And then, I use the moments in our lives together to pull that leadership quality out. For instance, if we're on the field and the captains and I personally see something going astray or a moment for them to be a leader, then I will pull the captain aside and say, hey, this is a great moment for you to step in and say, let's bring it in, let's restart. Whereas in the past, I might have just been like, bringing in the whole team, and then I would have given them my 2 cents. But rather than take that moment myself, because as a coach, we'll have many of those, that's where you allow your captains and your leaders to take that moment. I think pure accountability, pure leadership is, especially in college and professional sports, is the creme de la creme of leadership. And that's my philosophy and my feeling on leadership in general.
I echo those sentiments, and it's so great to hear from you. One thing that comes up though is that just is blaring at my face is the fact that you ask your captains to step up in opportunities to become better leaders and cement themselves as the leaders. I think a bonding experience as well with that. Do you think that there's an age that these guys have to achieve before they can do that? Or can this be something that at all levels the players are able to do and take on?
Absolutely. I think it could be at any level. Like I don't expect, again, we're educators and teachers and coaches. And if there are moments in a practice, no matter how old you are, that you can pull somebody aside and put them in a role, in a position of leadership, then you should do it. It could happen at a 7-year-old practice. Like I can tell Johnny, hey, Johnny, practice is pretty bad. This would be a great moment for you to step in, knowing that Johnny's mature enough to understand the situation. And like, you take this, like, hey guys, well, we could be better. Let's pick up ground balls. Let's catch and throw better. And then I would pull Johnny back and be like, great job. Like that can happen at any level. It doesn't have to be at just this level, but leaders miss opportunities as well. And being able to remind them or point out good times, is great for us.
I love that point. Thanks for sharing that, Ryan, especially the specific example of how to do that for our leaders, because I think that's a big thing that we're looking to do as coaches is really empower the youth or whoever we're speaking with to reach that next level. And specific examples like this help us understand how we can do that.
Yeah.
Now, Ryan, were you going to say something?
Yeah, no, I think the part of that, Ryan, is being as clear and concise as possible in your communication. Perceived communication is one thing, clear communication is another. And sometimes there's things that are lost in translation depending upon the situation and the pressure of the situation. So being as clear and concise as possible, not being afraid to be vulnerable or wrong in the process is another part. So I don't mean to interrupt, but I do think that, you're absolutely right about that. And I just think that it doesn't take like a creative genius to find a time to teach or lead from example.
I think clear communication is such an important thing. I'm glad you hit harder on that point, because sometimes it can be uncomfortable to share what's on our mind, or we create a story that it's uncomfortable. Yeah. When in reality, if you're able to be clear and direct, ultimately there's less stress at the other side and results happen.
Yep.
With the result mindset, as well as something you said earlier, you talked about your why or having a why. What are you focused on right now, Ryan? And what is the why that keeps you motivated?
I think, me being a better person is the why. And that's what keeps me motivated, whether it's a better husband or a father or a brother or a son, and ultimately a coach or a colleague. Believe it or not, Ryan, it's pretty cliche, but I there's not a day that goes by that I don't try to work on myself and using the 5 avenues I just mentioned. I think everything correlates. If anything, COVID's taught us is that we need to be better people. We have to have more grace and gratitude. And, I've been using this time period to be a better person. I've noticed other people doing the same thing, and maybe their interactions with me are different, and that they're working on it. We're all going through adverse situations right now, each of us in our own individual lives. So it's made me a better coach for sure. I think I talk to our guys differently. I think my focus is a little bit better. I think where in the past I used to get lost as in the story I create in my head, I just get cut right to the chase, and I think it's better serving them. It's better serving my colleagues, and hopefully it's better serving my family.
I certainly hope so. And Ryan, I can imagine it is, just based off the conversation we've had already. One thing that I want to make sure that we take from you, though, being at a pinnacle lacrosse school right now, is if we have youth players right now, wherever they may be, what should they be doing to play at the next level? Now, I know COVID's an interesting time because there's not a whole lot of tournaments. So maybe if you could share about what they could do during this COVID environment, and then also outside of COVID when things get back to normal, from your perspective and vantage point as a collegiate coach, what should players, parents, coaches at the youth level be doing to help their kids really achieve their ultimate goals?
Yeah, I think one of the things is that, COVID's brought back is like that school mentality, or that playground mentality, if you will. It's been really nice to see kids back outside playing pickup basketball or shooting hoops, or like taking tennis rackets and playing outside their house. As I walk around my neighborhood, and I live in Indiana now, it's that when the onset of the pandemic started, and everybody was back to cooped up and we were all locked up, to walk around and see that was really nice for me, because I think as an athlete, that's the genesis of competition, and you could work on yourself at that moment. And I would implore any young player or coach to focus in on the fundamentals. And those are the things you can do at home when nobody's watching. Whether it's ground ball, grab your stick, grab a tennis ball, pick up 100 ground balls, find a tree or a wall or a throwback or a net, and throw the ball, and or have a catch with mom or dad or your brother or sister or friends or neighbor. Those are all easy things to do. They don't cost anything. You don't need a field. You can really do anything. The fundamentals, again, passing and catching, scooping up a ball. And then if you want to get a little bit more, crazy, you can do, hopscotch and stuff to work on your feet, and, sprints in your backyard. So we're not talking about the game situation for the competition. We're talking about working on yourself at a moment where we should be working on ourselves on and off the field anyways. And that could start at the youngest age all the way through to the college athlete. So, it doesn't take much. It takes a little motivation, a little direction in your own life, and you could be as good as you want. You don't need to be 100 miles from home on a field that, isn't going to teach you those skills anyway.
I think those foundational skills are so important, and that's what allows you to continue to build upon yourself and ultimately reach that pinnacle that you want. Now, if we have someone who is outstanding, they're putting in the work on and off the field, but they don't know how to reach out or connect with a college coach, is there a best avenue for them to reach out to someone like you or some of your peers?
The best avenue is email. That's the quickest. Send a quick email, a little history about yourself, maybe some footage, 2 to 3 minute film. It does not have to be like all world editing skills or, done by a production company. It could be simple, easy. And then what your goals and aspirations are. It helps to differentiate between the universities that you're sending these emails to. I would highly recommend against bulk emails or mass emails, if you will, because as a college coach, it's very easier to decipher. And it allows me to eliminate those that I think have genuine interest in this case, the University of Notre Dame. And for other schools, spend a little extra time, do a little research, understand the school that you're interested in, and then, start a dialogue. And it doesn't mean you're going to get a response. I mean, we probably get a couple thousand a day, and do we respond to a majority of them? No, we only respond to a few of them, and that's okay though. You keep trying, and hey, coach, I'll be on this field in June of 2021. Great, hopefully we're there. But just starting the dialogue, and you'll find out very early in the process as a young man or woman if there's interest on both sides of this. And like anything else, it's a dating process. If there's a little bit of a nibble, great, keep with it. If there's a big one, you know you're on the right path. And if there's nothing, try again. And if there's nothing again, then you move in a different direction.
I think that's such a big part of life is where's that interest? Where are you getting pushed to? And it's mutual. It's on both sides of the field at the end of the day. And I think it's beautiful that lacrosse can start teaching us these things, because it's going to be the same thing whether you're looking to play at college or getting your first job, your second job, your fifth job. You have to be able to reach out and put yourself out there and then be able to continue to follow up. So Ryan, thanks for bringing that point up. We always like to see how we can help you and with your goals. I know you said you're focused on being a better person. Is there anything within that we can help you with, or anything else that we can partner with you on moving forward?
No, I'm all about leadership, and I love reading. I was on your site, listening to some of your other podcasts, and it's an opportunity for me to learn from others, learn from yourself. I mean, Ryan, it speaks volumes that first off, you named the podcast, Lacrosse Leadership Institute. I found that very unique. I think it's impressive. It's obviously a passion of your own. I'd like to see you continue it personally, and not just hold it to lacrosse, but maybe all sports, because I think a million different doors will open up, and that's what you can do for me. Continue on your path, man. Keep serving others. Keep bringing the information that you are to into the households, and I think we'll all be better for it.
Well, Ryan, I can promise you, I'm not stopping this. I think there's an opportunity to continue to empower great leaders moving forward, and you just had a huge part in that. So thank you so much for this conversation, Ryan. I hope you and your family have an absolutely wonderful Thanksgiving.
Thanks, Ryan. I appreciate it. Happy Thanksgiving.
Take care.